Is this year 32?
I don't know, 32 or 30. There was that lockout year. I don't know.
Oh, true.
We'll
take that off your seniority.
I think we've been doing it for 33 years, but I think we've only done 32 seasons because of that lockout year. But I'm not sure. 1992, I'd have to count backwards, and I'm not good at math.
I thought you were going to hit us with the line you always do, Dean, is just, I've been there the whole time. I don't know the math. I've just always been there.
Well, I was born a month before the first Sens game, so I can tell you it's been 32 years.
Okay, well, now I feel super old. Thanks. I appreciate that, Ross.
On today's show, we're joined by the radio voice for Ottawa Senators hockey on TSN 1200, Dean Brown.
And the Ottawa Senators are on the road up against the Boston Bruins, Linus Ullmark's old team. We'll give you a weekend preview of that game.
That and more on today's Locked On Sens. Welcome! You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. On the outskirts of enemy territory, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. You need tickets, you need Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. You can find the show on social media at Sens Central on Twitter, LockedOn.Senators on Instagram. We are free and available everywhere you get podcasts, including on YouTube. Today is Friday, November 8th, and Pilsy, what is your mood after a 4-2 loss to the New York Islanders?
Ross, I feel like at this point, I'm just trying to numb from November. It's a November numb. That's my mood because we thought this was going to be different. We thought the Ottawa Senators were going to be able to break the November curse, or maybe not. We thought, Ross, maybe we just hoped. Let's clarify on that. But November is still cursed for the Ottawa Senators. And I missed most of that game last night, but I caught the condensed game. And it seemed like, for the most part, the Sens were right in there. They made a push once they got some momentum, scoring that first goal from Nick Jensen. Then the power play goal from Drake Batherson was so filthy. I thought that was going to be a huge boost. They're only down one. But again, this team struggles to score when they pull their goalie, and it ends up being a 4-2 game. But for me, it seemed like there was just quick defensive lapses that the Islanders pounced on, and that allowed them to win this game. And unfortunately, Ross, those quick defensive lapses, at least two of them on two of the goals, came from Jake Sanderson and Artem Zub being on the ice. And those are the guys that are supposed to stop that from happening up against other teams' top lines. And the Islanders' top lines were a part of the first two goals. So that's where things are disappointing, because you expect that to be different.
And then what ends up being the game winner, just a bad giveaway behind the net by Anton Forsberg, and bang, bang, fourth line goal for the Islanders. And that's where it just felt out of reach. I think I tweeted out at Sens Central, cancel the season. Now, as I've said time and time again, nothing that I say during a game can ever be held against me.
Yes.
But it's certainly a concern now. The Senators are 1-3 in November. And the November Blues, yes, they're real, but they were so bad that now even average, which they haven't been so far this year, but it can be misconstrued as awful. Like the Senators went 1-10-1 in November 2021. Then in November 2022, they were 4-9-1. Last year, they were 4-5-0. So still under 500, still not great. But this year, 1-3, they got to fix that. And no better test than this Saturday, tomorrow. If you're listening to this, maybe on Saturday, it's a late drop today because we had to get Dean Brown on. Great conversation coming up with the voice of the Sens. And Tuesday in Toronto. Like, these are enormous games. You can even stretch it to next Thursday against Philadelphia. The Senators have not won enough games that on paper they should win. That will be another opportunity at home on Thursday. And then they're in the house of horrors. The Carolina Hurricanes have beaten down the Ottawa Senators over and over again. Like, if you're going to prove to the fan base that you're going to be able to be taken seriously in any sort of playoff race, this next stretch, we already called it an important stretch starting Tuesday. So you're now 0-2 on this important stretch. You're going to have to beat some really good teams coming up. And this month is a grind. There are some tougher tests coming to the CTC the following week in Edmonton and Vegas. You got Vancouver in town 2 Saturdays from now. Like, we're in the thick of what could be an off the rails month. And I think that adds to the fury of fans when they see them drop these games that theoretically you should be getting at least a damn point. That's my biggest gripe with this team. I made it clear in the postcast last night, Pilsy. The only goal they've scored with their goalie pulled, they already allowed an empty netter before that in Colorado. Like, I don't know if it's urgency or just a lack of finishing around the net. Josh Norris had a great opportunity in the dying minute. I think 54 seconds left, pulled it in the middle, pad save, but there's no sustained rebounds, third chances, 4. It's like they get one shot, they battle in the corner, they lose it, and it's an empty netter the other way. That needs to be something that's worked on in practice, 6-on-5 situations.
Especially with how many close games the Sens have been in this year. Ross, I'm going to take a page out of Travis Green's book, though. Someone asked him, hey, you've got Boston and Toronto coming up here, 2 big games. And he just goes, I'm not even thinking about Toronto. We're focused on Boston. I can't even get that far ahead. I'm taking this one game at a time here. And the Boston Bruins are not the Boston Bruins we're used to seeing. Sure, they're still surviving, doing better than the Sens, obviously. But you take a look at some of their stats, and it's not like their top guys are absolutely lighting it up. I mean, Casty is one of their top performers. I guess we're jumping ahead a little too far to the weekend preview here, so I'll save some of this for later. But what I also wanted to say is that the Ottawa Senators are going to have to find a way to just stay relaxed and calm in their own room. And sure, that was an Islanders team that was banged up. They had a lot of replacement guys in there. You're at home. You want to win that game, but you drop it. You can't let the world fall apart around you. And I know some Sens fans are on full panic mode. Ross, after doing this for how long we've done this, I've had to find ways to regulate myself and not panic so early. 6-7 on the season, not great. First time under 500. Wanted to stay at 500 or above 500 for a little longer than just a couple of games into the season here, but we gotta ride this through. There's a lot of hockey left, and Artem Zub coming back was huge. I thought that was going to be a big boost, and I even said I hope that we don't see Sanderson on the bottom of the game cards with Hamonic. Well, unfortunately, we saw Zub, Sanderson, and Hamonic were the bottom 3 guys on the game card, so that didn't really work out. But Zub might take some time for him to get into the swing of things. But speaking of what Travis Green said to the media today, Ross, there's a chance Shane Pinto plays tomorrow night. He was asked, is it a big chance? And the reporters kind of had a quick chuckle, and he goes, there's a chance. He didn't play into that little chuckle or like, oh, are you going to give us more? Nope, completely flat face, just said, like I said, there's a chance. So getting Shane Pinto back, Ross, I feel like you are the champion of the Pinto parade when it comes to stats. So I'll graciously hand it over to you here. Oh, here he goes. He's going to get a prop for people that are listening and people are watching on YouTube. There's the Nodak Pinto jersey.
Let's
Ross,
go.
Tell us about how this stretch of games changes if Shane Pinto is able to come into the lineup.
Well, just slotting, right? You're able to have 3 lines. The third line the last week, and I know Zach Ostapchuk, second-year pro, is being put probably in a tough spot.
Yep.
But, I mean, the Gaudette line is the third line, right? Like, they've gotten 0 production.
Even ice time wise, Ross, you look at it, and the fourth line had more ice than the third line last.
And no spoilers, but Dean Brown gives us a player that he thinks has more to give. And I think having that player with Shane Pinto is going to just allow proper slotting. Now, I wouldn't mind if they blew up the lineup a little bit and put Pinto on a line with Batherson or with Tkachuk, even maybe both. But I don't think that Travis Green's going to go there, so it's no use speculating things that just aren't going to happen. Today at practice, the lineup remained unchanged. I think if Pinto plays, it'll be as easy as putting him between Gregor and Amadio and just taking Ostapchuk out of the lineup, keeping that fourth quote-unquote line in order. And in-game, maybe we'll see a little bit of mixing and matching, but they clearly like Brady playing with Timmy. That's something that I didn't think either had their best game last night. Timmy, of course, with one eye. You got to respect him for being able to come back in that game. I'm sure he's going to be shined up tomorrow. I don't know if we'll see it under the tinted visor, but he's certainly going to have a little tint under his eye too.
Timmy had 2 assists, and that play to Batherson was a great heads-up play because he made everyone think that he was going for the shot, but he placed a perfect pass on Batherson, and both of them knew what was going to happen as soon as Timmy saw him on the tape. Batherson knows he can pivot and get around Varlamov there, so I thought that was a great play, but
you just want it. You want it to start of games. I want the best players on the team to set the tempo early,
especially at home,
not when they're down 3-0.
Yeah. And it did seem, and Ross, again, you watched the whole game and did the postcast, so correct me if I'm wrong, but it did seem like when Batherson scored that goal, they were right back in this. Like, I didn't get that sense that
even
they were
before
like, it's putting lipstick on a pig. Like, it felt like it was coming back.
And there was just under 6 minutes left when Batherson made it a 1-goal game. There was time.
A lot of time. Yeah.
There was time. And unfortunately, that was only a 2-minute power play. I thought that could have been 5 in a game for boarding. That was a greasy hit. And that was, to me, completely on the refs that the game allowed to get to that point because they were letting a lot of things go. I also said in the postcast, I'll stand by it, it's a fair embellishment call on Josh Norris earlier on. That was tough. Or it might have been, it was tough. But that said, I just want the best players to start the game on time tomorrow night. And Shane Pinto, say what you want about his slotting in the lineup. He is one of the best players on this team at creating offense. And they're missing his shot on the second power play unit. I don't think I've seen Josh Norris take a one-timer yet this year on the power play.
True.
Like, we need
not really
that shot. Norris has 0 goals on the road this year, too. That's a big one for him tomorrow. But again, 29, 15, and 3 when Pinto, Norris, and Stutzler in the lineup. That would be a huge boost going into a barn where the Senators haven't had a whole lot of success since that 2017 playoff run. Okay, let's get to Dean Brown. We'll have the weekend preview against Boston afterwards. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Hims. Guys, sometimes intimate moments happen spontaneously, and we always want to be ready so we can perform in the bedroom. Hims provides access to treatments that can help you stay hard and last longer, giving you that boost of confidence so you can be ready whenever the mood strikes. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with the access to affordable sexual health treatments, all from the comfort of your couch. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor visits. No insurance is needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. With hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, Hims can help you find the ED option that works best for you. Start your free trial today on hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescription requires an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See websites for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on products and subscription plan. Check it out today, guys. Hims.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Game Time. If you need tickets, you need Game Time. Whether it's sports, comedy, theater, you need to go to Game Time because you'll get the last-minute tickets at the lowest prices, and it's guaranteed. Game Time also has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes it even easier. They'll filter out the fluff and only show you incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. They also have the all-in pricing option. Just put the feature on and you'll get the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. You can get panoramic views from your seat and the lowest price guarantee. If you find the same seats in the same row for less, you will be credited 110% of the difference. That's the Game Time guarantee. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL, LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, here he is, friend of the show, Dean Brown. All right, we now welcome a very, very special guest back to Locked On Senators. It is the voice on TSN 1200, Dean Brown. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well, boys. Just got into Boston, rolled into Beantown, and ready for a little bit of Saturday night hockey.
Boston seems to be one of those destinations on the away schedule. Or what are the ones you circle your calendar for on the road?
At this stage of my career, I'm not sure there's any that I circle as. To be honest with you, it's more just places that I like where we work. I like the building we work in, or if I have family or friends in that town, to be honest with you. But Boston is one of those things. If I were to recommend a place that fans, if they want to put a little list together of spots they want to hit before they can't do any more traveling, I would say, Boston, Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh gets a bad rap. Pittsburgh is a great road trip. Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, all the ones you would expect. But I think one of the ones that people are often they make a face. They go, Pittsburgh, and I say, yeah, Pittsburgh's an outstanding stop.
Nice.
So
Making notes right now.
So you've obviously got to visit lots of different places throughout your career, but something new for you. You got to go to a new city for the first time. How was Salt Lake City for you?
It was good. It was interesting. Like in any place, there's new things that you haven't experienced before. In Salt Lake City, people may or may not know. I think most people know, but over 60% of the population is Mormon. So there's things that are just not as popular there. Like it's hard to find a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Because one thing I did not know about the Mormon religion is they don't drink warm beverages other than tea. So there's places to buy coffee, but not that many because the vast majority of people don't drink coffee. As a matter of fact, it's the only NHL building I've ever been in where they don't sell coffee. There's no coffee vendors there.
Weird.
And I'm everybody has their routines. And for me, I drink coffee to keep my voice warm during games. And so one of the guys who worked there took me down to the team's offices because in their break room, they have a Keurig machine, and he made me a cup of coffee because there's no place in the building to buy a cup of coffee. And it's just, it's different. Streets there, for example, downtown are unbelievably wide. And I asked them, I said, why are the streets this wide? I said, well, originally, when they were building this city, the streets had to be wide enough to be able to turn a team of horses and wagon around in the street. So they're wide enough to be able to turn a team of horses and a wagon around in the middle of the street. So it's just stuff like that. Not downtown. It's not like they don't have them, but downtown, very hard to buy a sandwich. Like there's no fast food downtown. There's no McDonald's or Arby's. And there was a place called Mavericks, which is like a 7-Eleven. Reasonably close to our hotel. It was a mile away. That was the closest one, was a mile away from our hotel. If you just want to go and get a chocolate bar or a bag of chips, that's because I don't know why, but downtown, that's just not a big thing. And the other thing I didn't realize was downtown is loaded with hotels, more hotels than you would think in a city that size. And one of the people I talked to when I was getting a bite to eat said, I did not realize how big a convention town it is. She was telling me there's always 2 or 3 conventions going on in downtown Salt Lake City. And I did not know that. So just some things you find out. Building was fantastic. Our broadcast location, fantastic. They couldn't have been more helpful. It was a great experience. Like in the building, great experience. And it's going to be better down the road. They've already earmarked, I think, $525 million to basically make the building more hockey friendly because the 2 ends are really cut off and made more for basketball. So they're going to blow out the 2 ends of the building and make them a more gradual, cascading effect for seats like you would see in a rink. And there's another $375 million that they've earmarked to create a hockey plaza outside the building. So it's really good right now, but it's going to be really, really good in the future.
I'm excited to see that develop, and I'm just picturing you and Gord taking a horse and carriage from your hotel to the rink before a game. But Dean, you're obviously right in the mix every day with the group. What's the mood around the team right now?
Today was a quiet trip here into Boston. You just get the sense that nobody was happy with what happened against the Islanders. Not happy with not just the result, but how they got themselves in a 3-0 hole. And you go through those ups and downs in a season. And to be honest with you, when you get to be an old guy like me, you start to run through some of the cliches in your mind. When you win a game this time of year, you're never as good as everybody says you are. And when you lose a game, you're not as bad as everybody says you are. So I think I'm kind of in that place right now. The amount of social media criticism and the amount of hand rubbing after 2 straight losses. It's kind of the equivalent of what used to be a 5 straight loss, kind of hand rubbing, you know what I mean? So I think that just tells you that, expectations for this team are high, both inside the team and outside the team. And when they don't look like they're making it, the response is almost immediately. And Some people might say that's a bad thing, and I think it makes some people uncomfortable, but I think it's a good thing in the sense that you've got such a hockey-rich market and such high expectations that 2 straight losses and the way they lost does bring an immediate response.
Now, do you think this could be a case where there's just so much turnover on this team, a lot of new players, pretty much a totally revamped coaching staff? Is this the type of thing, Dean, you think is just, you got to give it a little bit more time, or how do you see it from that point?
Yeah, well, you know what, Brandon, that's a dangerous thing to say in Ottawa, because people have been waiting for 7 years and now going into the 8th, and they don't want to hear anything other than we're going to win every game. But I think you're right, and not just the fact that, you know, the whole environment down there. They've spent $1 million changing all the different structures downstairs for the players, where they come in the building, where they leave the building. The training room is in a different place now. The medical room is a different. The gym has all been revamped. So structurally, the place looks very different. The expansion and the revamping of that area for the players, for their benefit, is fantastic. But it's a change. And you're right, coaching changes, and different players on the team, and also a different system. They're all still getting used to a different system, which is a normal thing with a new coach. So there has been a lot of change, and it might take a little bit to get everybody really, you know, getting it at all the same time. But if anybody's expecting any sympathy over that right now, they're not going to find very much of it. I don't think people want to hear that right now, but doesn't change the fact that I think, Brandon, what you're saying is indeed a fact, that there's been so much change, I think, in a relatively short period of time. Realistically, I don't think you can get their best performance every night right now, because there's still a lot of different balls being tossed in different areas all the time.
And we know that you're not in the meeting room, so this might be more of an outside question, but you are in the press conferences each and every day and have been through the 3 coaches now in the last couple of years, with DJ, then Jacques Martin, now Travis Green. What are you seeing from the coach that you think is going to translate once the systems are all set in?
I think probably the biggest thing in that regard, Ross, is the fact that there are some non-negotiables. And you can see during practice when he stops drills, or, you know, you can see what the non-negotiables are, where it's not like, well, we'll work on that. No. There's some things that this is how it's going to be done. And if it's not done like that, we're going to do it again and again and again. And so I think those are things that can vault a team further ahead quicker in getting used to each other and getting used to a new system, when everybody clearly understands the parts of it that are non-negotiable. And he is very quick as a coach to get on that kind of stuff. He's not really a let things go and we'll work them out as we go. He's not that kind of guy. So that might be rough for some of the guys right now, but I think in the longer term, that will move them along quicker in getting to that place where all the changes in the new system become automatic and they don't have to think about it. And that is their go-to. They are not there yet, but I think they get to that point quicker because of things like the non-negotiables.
Hope you're enjoying our conversation with Dino. We'll get right back to it. But first, Pilsy's got a word from one of our favorite sponsors.
This episode is also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same place where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com today. You'll start with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's FanDuel.com. Now, you're someone that travels with the team, so I want to get your perspective on this. Obviously, last night, home game didn't go the way the Sens want, but for the most part, they've been great when they're playing at the Canadian Tire Center. And then on the flip side, not very good when they're on the road. Can you give us any kind of perspective or ideas as why teams' home and away record could be so vastly different like this?
Well, I would think, Brandon, that I would push back first on the idea that they've been so bad on the road. Their record is bad. the two best
Fair.
games they've played, the best games they've played were in Vegas and New York, and they lost those games. They deserved a better fate in both of those games. And this early in the season, having 3 wins on the road instead of 1 looks completely different. So I think that part is probably just happenstance, and their record is not good, but it's not like they have been bad on the road all the time. And as we saw last night for a lot of that game, they were okay, but not great. Well, on the road, there's been games like that too, where they've been really good or okay, but not great. For me, it's not so much about home and road. It's about, when they're playing their best game, they have proven that they can play with and beat the best teams. They should have beaten Vegas, and they could have and should have beaten the Rangers if it weren't for Shesterkin. The place where they're at right now, the good teams that win a lot of games, they play at this level all the time. And when they don't play at this level, they go down to this level. And Ottawa right now, they can play at this level with those good teams, but when they go down to here. And you have to have more consistency and maturity in your game so that when you don't have your best game and you have one of those drop-offs, they're not as dramatic. And that's what you work towards. That's what they're working towards. They're clearly not there yet. But that's more what it's about, as opposed to where the game is played, home or road. It's to me anyway, it's that gap between your best game and how much of a game you can play when you're not at your best. And right now their gap is still too big compared to the really good teams in the league. And that consistency, when that comes into their game, I think you're going to see a better record on the road and just a better record, period. But I'm not, at least maybe I should be, maybe I'm naive, but I'm really not as wound up about the road record's not good. I see the numbers, I know what it is, but I've also seen those road games that they should have and could have won.
Yep.
No, I think that's very fair. And one thing about consistency is getting into a rhythm. And right now, Linus Ullmark, the big acquisition in the offseason, has only played 2 games in a row once. Is this the time now where, assuming he's healthy, of course, that's got to be number one, but if he's 100% health, would you run him here for the next 3, 4, 5 games?
That's a really good question. I think that when a team, when the head coach and the goalie coach and the goaltenders sit down and they get their schedule together and they say, this is how we plan to run guys out. I think you want to be careful in that. You want to get results, but everybody knows that there's not a team in this league that doesn't have to get production out of both their goalies to have a chance. So if you're altering that schedule a great deal because one guy's not going, that is not a good place to be. And if you think you really need to change the schedule to get Ullmark multiple games to get his game going, it also kind of disrespects Forsberg, who's played well and got 2 shutouts. So what are you telling him? So I think maybe if you're heading towards the playoffs and you've got a hot goalie, you might want to ride that goalie, because by and large in the playoffs, most teams do pick their guy and that's the guy they're going to go with. And sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. But at this time of the year, I think you want to get them in the natural rotation that you all already discussed. And pretty much when you're going to play your next game, barring injury, and you get your headspace into that, and you go that way. And that respects both the goalies. And it also demands that they get ready in the proper time for their games, for their starts. He has not said, but I am assuming that it's going to be Ullmark tomorrow night. And I'm assuming that's why it was Forsberg the other night, to get Ullmark to be the guy whose number comes up for this Boston game, coming back to his old team. But I'm not sure at this time of the year if that get him going, put him in, just keep putting him in there to get him going. I don't know if that, and there may be some analytics that can tell me whether that is a good idea or historically a bad idea. But I kind of think that when you pull the 2 goalies out of the schedule you developed, it might not be the best plan of attack. But who knows?
Now, another kind of thing that Sens fans are very worked up about, like you mentioned, a lot of Sens fans are worked up about how the season's going for the team overall, is the decision to keep Travis Hamonic in the lineup now that Artem Zub is back and have JBD be a healthy scratch. Is this something that you think could be a distraction for the team, or is it something that maybe it's more fans and media that's really highlighting this, and the team is just like, look, it's the coach's decision. It doesn't really affect us as a whole. And I mean, at the end of the day, we're talking about third pair defenseman decisions here. How much could that
Yeah.
possibly impact things? Like where do you land on that?
Well, first of all, it doesn't matter to me personally one way or the other if they choose to play one or the other. It's just whatever player you're putting in is what you're putting in. I'm kind of like you though. I'm surprised at how much emotion and anger there is over who's going to be the seventh defenseman in early November. I'm kind of surprised. As far as the players are concerned, some are more on social media than others, and so some have seen some of this, and others have no clue and don't care. And I can tell you, the coaching staff, by and large, I don't think any of them really are on social media, and I'm not sure they would care anyway. They're going to do what they're going to do. So I think JBD is going to play. When? I don't know. I guess if you think he should be playing right now, then you're angry. If it doesn't matter to you, then it doesn't matter. And if you don't care, then you still don't care. I don't know if I would say that, if you're looking to break this down, if they've lost a lot of games because Travis Hamonic has been playing, are they attributing the plus minus or the analytics of Sanderson to Hamonic dragging him down? If they are, how did Hamonic drag him down last night when he wasn't his partner? You can look at the analytics and you can try and determine, what has been the problem with that pair. And it's easy to point at Hamonic and say, there's a guy who was a third pair guy. Now he has to be a first pair guy. He's dragging Sanderson down. The only problem with that is you have to look at both sides of that coin. And do you look at Sanderson's performance and when he's not paired with Hamonic and judge it the same way? So all in all, I don't know. Do I think that Travis Hamonic is closer to the end of his career than the beginning? Clearly closer to the end. Is JBD closer to the beginning? Closer to the beginning. Is JBD likely to have more of a future than Hamonic? JBD clearly. Would I be shocked if he plays tomorrow night? No. Would I be shocked if Hamonic plays tomorrow night? No. But I think one of the things that is a constant through every coach I've ever met in this game, ever, on any team ever, is coaches make a huge amount of their decisions based on trust. Who they know, who they trust. What do I know I'm going to get out of this guy? And I would think, and he's never said it, but I would think that one of the things that is part of this is the fact that right now, with a very young left side partner in Cleven, I think right now part of it is the fact that the coach trusts what kind of a partner Hamonic is going to be for Cleven. And when he was playing with Sanderson, trusting that he's going to be a guy that knows how much he still can do and is more aware of the stuff he can't do and be a good partner for Sanderson. So I think for the future, is obviously going to be JBD. But as of today, the best thing for today might be, at least in the coach's mind, being able to trust a guy like Hamonic as a veteran guy to know how to deal with these situations, not for forever, but for today. So for me personally, I don't much care which one's in. I'm not upset one way or the other. But I realize that I think that's just another sign that people are right on the edge of their seats, that this is such an emotional topic in early November, discussing who is going to be the seventh defenseman on a team. I think that shows just how passionate a hockey market we have.
Yeah, well said. And one part of the consistency and trust for Travis Green's been that Thomas Chabot, Nick Jensen pair, which I think has been their best the last two games, maybe even further back. What are you seeing from Nick Jensen that's complementing and allowing Chabot to kind of, round out his game overall?
I think probably because it's a more traditional pair. I think one of the reasons why, Chychrun and Chabot never worked was more than just both of them are lefties and one guy had to play the right side. It was more than just that. Both of them, the best parts of their game are when they're getting up the ice and trying to make things happen with their legs. So when you had two play, and I don't think anybody would say that Jensen is certainly a better offensive player than Chychrun. No one would say that. But I think this is probably a better pair in Chabot and Jensen because it's a more traditional pair. Jensen is more of a stay-at-home, defense-first kind of guy, battle for space, and he will get the puck to Chabot. When it's time for him to go and make a rush, he's going to make it, but he's not going to do anything crazy. He's not going to take any big chances. That's for Chabot to do. So I think of it being a more traditional kind of pair, one more of a defensive guy and one more of a mover, I think makes both of them become a better pair than maybe Shabbat and Chychrun ever could be. So, like I said, even though Chychrun is, I think obviously offensively at least, a better player than Jensen, I think Jensen makes that pair a better pair because they're more of a traditional pair with different skills.
Yeah, I think that's fair for sure. A final question for me here, Dean, and it's always a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much for joining us. Who is one player that you look at on this team and you're like, we haven't seen the best from this player yet, and that you're confident can elevate their game?
Oh boy, that's a good question. I think probably my answer would be Mike Amadio. Hasn't been generating any offense, but over and above that, I never look at him as a guy that's going to generate a ton of offense yet. But he is so good along the boards. He is so good maintaining possession until his teammates get in the zone. He is so good at protecting the puck until help comes. He is so good at getting the puck off the boards and keeping it in safe areas. He's a rinse and repeat kind of player. And I think that when he starts to add a little bit, he's never going to be a huge offensive guy. But when he starts to add a little bit of offense to his game, I think that's going to have people looking at him more than they are now and seeing some of those subtle things he does and how good a stick he is. Like he probably has, as far as just stick placement, the ability to knock down pucks, to read things, to be, have that kind of that seventh sense about being able to have your stick in the right place. The only player on the team better than him is Giroux. And, and actually Tim Stützle told Gordon and I that a couple of weeks ago, as far as having a good stick on this team, Amadio, the only guy who's better than him is Giroux. And I don't think a lot of people see that. And I think once he starts to add some offense to his game, I think it's going to have people go, oh, you know what? Like he's a better player than I thought he was. So I think probably that would be one of my picks where I think people are going to see him in, weeks or a month away from now and go, he's better than I thought he was.
Yeah, I like that answer. 2 assists so far, no goals for Michael Amadio in his second trip in as an Ottawa Senator. Dean, final question from me, and just to reiterate what Pillsy said, we love having you as a part of the show. Great, we got to share some pints with you last spring in Minnesota. But my final question for you is something else we're discussing this episode. Like, how important is Shane Pinto to the whole mix? Because they're 4-2 when he's in the lineup, 3-0 when he has a point. You can even go all time, 42, 10, and 6 when he has a point. Like, Are we overselling the importance of a third line center, or does he make that much of a difference?
He makes that much of a difference because he's more than a third line center. He's a third line center that has come up and done an admirable job as a very young player being a second line center, and for a time a first line center. He's on your penalty kill now, and he does a great job there. He's become a better than average face-off guy, and I think he's just maturing as a player. So he's one of those guys when you've got Norris and Stützle as 1 and 2, he can't really slot anywhere else. But on a lot of teams, he would be your second, or on some teams, your first line center. So, he's a guy that's got good size. He's got really good skill, and he's got a high compete level. So he can do a bunch of different things for you. And one of them is being able to fill in for guys when they're injured or when the lines get shuffled. If there's a lot of special teams playing, you can't roll lines. You can put him out on the ice with any of the lines, and it doesn't weaken any of the lines. In fact, it almost always makes them in some way a little bit better. When they're shuffling the lines because there's been a lot of power play time and he goes out and he's taking a shift with what normally would be Stützle's line, he's not going to have the offense, but he's going to be better defensively. So he's going to bring something else good to the table that is going to help that line until you get it back in the formation you want it to. So I think all of us, the danger is, Ross, that we just call him a third line center and say he's a third line center. I think eventually over time, you're going to see over the long run, Ostapchuk is going to be a 10-year third line center on this team, and Shane Pinto is going to be somewhere higher in the lineup, because I think Ostapchuk is really is going to end up being more that quintessential third line center kind of guy, kind of like Adam Lowry in Winnipeg. And I think Pinto is going to be somewhere up, not down, somewhere up, higher in the lineup than that, because there's almost nowhere he can't play in the top 6.
Yeah, super impressive, and we're hoping that Shane Pinto is back maybe as early as tomorrow, but obviously it will give the Senators a big boost. Dean Brown, you can listen to him on TSN 1200, calling Ottawa Senators games. Is this year 32?
I don't know, 32 or 33. There was that lockout year. I don't know.
Oh, true.
We'll
take that off your seniority.
I think we've been doing it for 33 years, but I think we've only done 32 seasons because of that lockout year. But I'm not I'm not sure. 1992. I'd have to count backwards, and I'm not good at math.
I
so
thought you were going to
it's
hit
been
us
a
with
while.
the line you always do, Dean, is just, I've been there the whole time. Like,
Yeah,
I don't
the
know the
whole
math.
time.
I've just always been there.
Well,
There
I was
you go.
born a month before the first Sens game, so I can tell you it's been 32 years.
Okay, well, now I feel super old. Thanks. I appreciate that, Ross.
Hey, your gift basket's going to be waiting for you in Winnipeg right after Christmas when we see you then. Really appreciate your time, Dean, and we look forward to listening to you throughout the season on TSN 1200.
As always, anytime, boys. My pleasure.
All right, Pillsy, final segment here on this Friday, November 8th. Remembrance Day coming up on Monday. Make sure you've got your poppy and take some time and look back at the heroics that were the Canadian Armed Forces and all the people that are still serving us and our country today. We could not be here with the freedom we have without for those men and women. Pillsy, it's a game day in Boston tomorrow. I'm sure some people are listening to this on Saturday, 7 p.m. puck drop. It's hockey night in Canada. I don't think you can understate the importance of this game for the Senators.
Ross, the importance of this game makes me nervous about it because I feel like the Buffalo game, that was one you're like, okay, the Buffalo Sabres are struggling, and let's see if the Sens can turn things around on the road. The Sabres wanted it more. They came out hot. The Sens dropped that game. Okay, it happens. You come back home. You get a banged-up Islanders team at home. You're hoping to take advantage of that. Okay, you lay another egg there, unfortunately. Well, I shouldn't say lay another egg, but you're not able to get it done. Now, with those two games compounded and on the road again, going to Boston, Linus Ullmark revenge game, it feels like there's a lot in the air here, and I'm nervous. Like, there's no other way around it. I'm so nervous.
I'm nervous it's going to be a Mark Kastelic revenge game more than anything.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Cassie's fitting in nice there. That is a player that is built to play for the Boston Bruins, though.
So, I don't want this to become a stat, but the Senators are 0-for on the road against Eastern Conference teams this year.
Oh, man. Y'all got any more Utah Hockey Club?
Yeah, give me that Utah pack, please. I would love to head to Mary J's and grab myself a Utah Hockey Club. But when you're looking at the team right now, it's about getting some defending, man. Like, the goals against are getting out of hand again. You got to make sure you get through those first 10 minutes because we know Boston, any home team, really, they're going to come out swinging in the first 10 minutes and try to put you on your heels. If you're Ottawa, you've got to be able to maintain your composure and get through that initial push. The first goal is going to be critical because if you score once, you score twice. All 13 games this year, whoever scores first scores second, which is just a peculiar stat that we'll be following for the next little while here. But this Bruins team, we know that they've got a lot of changes. They've got an enormous defensive core, but they haven't been able to put it all together yet. So they're a team that's 7-7-1. They've already played 15 games, right? Ottawa's only at 13 so far this season. So this is a huge opportunity to put another L in their column and climb back to 500 themselves. I think Shane Pinto is going to be an important piece if healthy. We don't even know what the injury is. You talked earlier in the show about Travis Green not saying if he'll be back. I mean, he's not even saying what the injury is. So we're just hoping. And the good news is that Pinto's been skating for a while. And to me, that means that he should have less of an adjustment when he gets back into the lineup. We hope, of course, that it is tonight. If you're listening on Saturday, we're getting close, about 25 hours away from game time. Pilsy, who's a player you're going to be locked onto tonight for the Ottawa Senators?
Artem Zub. Last time I was locked on to Jake Sanderson, hoping that Zub would bring him back, but now that was Zub's first game back, so definitely willing to give him some leash here. But we got to see that pair get back to shutting things down. And Dean said it, like, we can't look at Sanderson's game last night and say, well, Hamonic brought him down. He had Zub with him, and regardless, wasn't a great performance from him. And there was a couple key defensive lapses from him when he was on the ice, unfortunately. So I'm going to be locked onto Artem Zub, hoping that he can elevate that top pair to where we know it can be.
I like that. I'm going to go with Timmy Superstar. I think lost in the game last night, and I guess not lost because you mentioned it. He did have 2 assists. He's up to 19 points in 13 games
Tied
Truly.
for 8th in the league, Ross. He's tied for 8th in points in the league. Let's go. It's been a long time since I've looked at NHL stats, points leaders, and seen an Ottawa Senators face there. So that's fun.
He's got 5 points in his last 3 games. And of course, he's got that 4-point game in his back pocket 5 games ago against the St. Louis Blues. So he's buzzing, and I'm curious to see how this Shiner is going to affect. Clearly, the vision was still good, but we know that the swelling could be worse the next day. He was held off the ice at practice, but will play in tomorrow's game. So I'm going to be locked on to Tim Stützle, that entire top line. We know that Boston's top heavy. They've got Pasternak and Marchand. I don't know if they're always playing together. We didn't bother doing the lines today in case they change a day before the game. It looks like they aren't as of right now. Lindholm is between Marchand and Justin Brazeau. And then you've got Pavel Zacha with Tyler Johnson just signed after a PTO in camp, and David Pasternak. So they've got some high-end producers, Pasternak most specifically, but they don't have a line that should be able to hang with Stützle and Brady if they're clicking at their best. You haven't been able to say that forever going up against Boston, but this feels like a game where Ottawa, sure, play a responsible road game, play smart defensively, but have your superstars be just that and win them the game. I don't want low-calorie points, Pilsy. I want these to be high-leverage situations that Ottawa's top guys come to play for.
Agreed. Yeah, definitely. And I think, Ross, too, like, again, we're assuming Linus Ullmark starts. We literally have no clue what goalie's starting on any given night, so this could all be for naught. But this game will be so important for him if he does start. If he gets a win, oh my God, massive morale boost. But if there's a loss and he doesn't play well, that could be
a high leverage game, man.
Exactly. So that's one thing I'm going to be keeping an eye on as well. And Ross, I feel like I'm a broken record here, but it's because of the 3 opponents, the last games the Ottawa Senators have had. The Boston Bruins, another team that does not have a lot of success on the power play. They're 30th in power play percentage, Ross, 12.9%. The 2 teams ahead of them in 29th and 28th, the Islanders and Sabres. So this, again, has to be a night, and I talked about it. I wanted the special teams to improve up against the Islanders. Penalty kills, perfect. They go 1 for 3 on the power play, so I got my wish there. Let's keep it rolling up against the Boston Bruins power play that is hibernating for the time being.
Ottawa got that power play goal in the 3rd period. Drake Batherson had snapped an 0 for 15 streak. So you're hoping the Sens can build on that while building on a perfect PK that they had against the Islanders. I thought the PK was one of the highlights of the game early. No setups. And again, the Islanders a brutal power play as well, but they weren't able to get anything going with their man advantage. So we're going to be very intrigued to see tomorrow night's game. We'll have the postcast for you afterwards, whether we vent or vibe. We cannot thank everybody enough for riding the roller coaster with us each and every day throughout the season. It's a labor of love, but we couldn't do it without our great sponsors, the GLEBE Central Pub, Farm to Fork, Mary J's, and the great array that we have from the Locked On Network and you, the citizens. We will be adding a new shirt soon to our Sens Central store. If you want to go see it, you can head to Twitter at Sens Central. I'll wait until we can model it ourselves to really get into the details. But as with anything that Doodling Daryl does, there is a number of Easter eggs within. So we're looking forward to that. And hopefully we can proudly be a goalie-friendly show and get these boys some support that they need to get into a rhythm. For today, we say goodbye. Hope everybody had a great Friday. We will talk on the postcast after Saturday's game against the Boston Bruins. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.